Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Why Eagles Why, our weekly look at the Philadelphia Eagles. Dave Bontempo, Pete Amato, and Bill Gelman with you. You know how we do the show, 4 quarters and an overtime segment. Please remember to hit like and subscribe to be notified about future videos. All right, boys, good to see you again. As we break the huddle in the first quarter up in New York, they're saying, what was the number of that train that just passed through here as the Eagles demolished the New York Giants last week, a virtuoso performance. Pete, I'll go to you first. Your thoughts when you consider that game?
Yeah, I wasn't really surprised. I mean, we've been talking about how I feel the Giants were going to start falling off anyway. I didn't think Daniel Jones could keep up with better quarterbacks or better offenses, and you've seen that over the last few games. One thing I was really impressed with is the ability for the Eagles and Jalen Hurts and the offense, how many ways they can beat you. Jalen Hurts looked great throwing the ball, but he didn't really have to take over the game throwing the ball because our run game looked incredible. And I think that's a testament to our offensive line. I mean, those guys are so dominant. They make Miles Sanders. I mean, it looked like he was having an easy day out there. I mean, he didn't really have that many big broken tackles because he didn't really need to. I think the offensive line is, if they stay healthy and keep doing what they're doing, I don't think it's going to be hard for anybody to beat us. I mean, we can beat you on the ground, we could beat you in the air, and that is very impressive.
12-1 and soaring above the NFC East. Bill, as you watch that game unfold, that pasting of the Giants, what occurred to you?
It occurred to me that this team is so talented and so deep that if they can't beat you one way, they're going to beat you another way. You saw the passing game, you saw the running game, you saw the defense turn in an absolutely dominating performance. Giving Daniel Jones nightmares all day. I don't see another team in the NFL right now that's on the same level as the Eagles. Howie did a great job getting this team together. And just when you thought there was holes, Howie brings in some guys who were sitting down at the beach enjoying some Coronas and, the time away from football. And, they're even fitting right into the program. So I'm very excited to see how far this team can actually go when we get into the playoffs.
Well, I'll tell you, there are moments throughout the year, and you look back and say, that was an aha moment. And one of them to me was in week 2 against the Vikings, the bomb to Quez Watkins, indicating that Jalen Hurts had touch on that deep pass. And there was another one in the Giants game, 4th and 7. You're ahead 7-0, 4th and 7. In that in-between territory, they not only go for it, they get a touchdown on 4th and 7 when you knew they had to pass. That one said to me, there's something special going on this year. And that was just another example. I think the game was over after that.
Yeah, the Giants they've come down to earth is, I guess, the best way to sum it up. There's like we were talking about last week. The Eagles and that team in Dallas, they're going to start pulling away from the rest of the division as we get to the tail end of this season. And Sunday's game was a perfect example of that, of how the Giants aren't even in the same universe as the Philadelphia Eagles this season.
No, they are not. The Giants 0-3-1, and in their last 4 as they get to prepare for the Washington Commanders in a must-win for them. So that was quite a run by the Eagles last week. They've got the Chicago Bears up this week, and we'll take a look at that in the second quarter. Second quarter of Why Eagles, Why the juggernaut Philadelphia Eagles, -9 as they visit the Chicago Bears. And the DraftKings betting public says 77% of that spread handle is on the Eagles, giving a big number like that. Pete, that is a gigantic display of faith by the gamblers on this Eagles team.
Yeah, well, the gamblers did their homework because the Bears actually have the second worst record against the spread this year at 4-8-1. And the Bears are just not a good team. They're coming off a little bit of rest, but they haven't really done anything that great. I mean, the only kind of bright spot they have going for them a little bit during the season was their quarterback, who was running for crazy amount of yards. But we've all seen that happen with quarterbacks in the past. That's just so hard to maintain in the NFL. Your quarterback isn't going to be able to get it done just with his legs in this league. So if that's all they have to rely on, they're going to be in trouble moving forward. But yeah, they're just not a good team, and I think bettors know it. Like I said, they're really bad against the spread, and they don't put up numbers. Their defense really doesn't stop any offense, and I think the Eagles. I think 9 points is where it should be.
And they're a very bad fourth quarter team at home. The Green Bay Packers rallied to beat them and cover a couple of weeks ago. The Lions did that to them. And Bill, this team hasn't won a game since late October. So now the Eagles come in here. There's one school of thought that says you can't be complacent, but the other school of thought says they just have such a talent edge over the Bears that won't matter.
Yeah, I think in reality, you're 100% correct there. I mean, we're talking about a Bears team that is 3-10, as you mentioned, hasn't won since October 29th, to be exact. They have no shot at the postseason, as they've been officially eliminated. And being a 9-point underdog at home at Soldier Field in cold weather, all signs are pointing to the Eagles absolutely dominating this game, even bigger than they did against the Giants and the Tennessee Titans. Here's the scary part. Next week is Dallas week in Dallas. And I guarantee every single player in the Eagles locker room is already thinking about that game, because that game has so much meaning for the playoffs. I don't think this Eagles team, I think they've had their scares this season. I don't think they're going to make that same mistake again, but you can't help thinking about that. And really, if you follow the simple game plan of stopping Justin Fields, the Eagles should have no trouble winning this game. Now, Pete mentioned how he's been running for a ton of yards. I mean, we're talking about bigger than Jalen Hurts numbers. 178 rushing yards against the Dolphins, 147 yards against the Lions. But what did it matter? The Bears did not win either one of those games.
No.
So even though Fields shows he can run, if it doesn't translate into the win column, it really doesn't matter. He doesn't pass for a ton of touchdowns. He's turnover prone. And there's really no other player on the Bears team that really catches my attention right now.
No, and they've been snake bit. They had a 14-point lead against the Lions with the big touchdowns that he had, but then he threw a pick six. But now let's just get into something interesting about, okay, stop Justin Fields, you stop the Eagles. Now, Pete, you mentioned that a quarterback with his legs cannot do it just that way in the league. So what are some of the things the Eagles are going to try to do to put the clamps on Justin Fields?
Well, we do have pretty athletic defensive linemen. Instead of maybe just like rushing down on him, they might try to hold him in a little bit, kind of go around him and just kind of, so he doesn't get out of the pocket, keep him in the pocket. I think that's what they're going to do. They're going to try to keep him in the pocket, maybe not use the pass rush as they've been doing to try to attack the quarterback, but kind of just make him throw the ball. I also think they'll probably put a spy on him. I don't know if they really need to. I mean, usually that's more of an adjustment. If he starts beating him with his legs, then that'll be like an adjustment down the road. But yeah, if they do basically try to contain him instead of all out trying to sack him, they need to. It's going to give a little pressure to the DBs on our team. They're going to might have to cover the guy for a little bit longer. So Jonathan Gannon just needs to kind of, like I've been saying all year, he needs to play. He needs to be aggressive with his DBs, because if he does do that soft zone where he sits back a little bit, and then you have your defensive line in a contain mode, any quarterback can be able to pick you apart all day with like little 5 to 8 yard passes.
So harass them, but don't overcommit. That's a
Yeah.
good way for looking at how they'll try to do it. But Bill, what do you expect as far as matchups? What they're going to try to do? And on the offensive side of the ball for the Eagles, what are you looking for there against this porous Bears defense?
A lot of points. I mean, I was trying to think of a score yesterday or the day before. I mean, I see this game easily being in the 35-10 range. If the Eagles do everything they're supposed to. As I say week after week, the Eagles have way too many weapons on offense for teams like the Bears to keep up with. And this week, Dallas Goedert is eligible to come off the injured reserve. So if you add him into the mix with A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Miles Sanders, Jalen Hurts, the Bears are their heads are going to be spinning on defense because they're not going to know who to defend first. And then, if they happen to cover everyone else, Quez Watkins is going to be speeding down the field. He's going to be wide open in the end zone. I see this being like a Eagles playing the Temple Owls type game. It's on paper. The two teams are not shouldn't be in the same league right now. It's like the majors going against the minor league team.
All right. Well, we'll see how that plays out, and quite an evolution for the Eagles to be able to say that. We'll take a further look at everything in the third quarter. Third quarter of Why Eagles Why. The team is surging, and one of the reasons is Jalen Hurts. The sports books are recognizing him now. Caesars early this week made him the favorite in the MVP race, and a lot of that is a few New Jersey bettors put more than $5,000 on Jalen Hurts to win the MVP, so that changed some of his odds. So, Pete, you take a look at him as the favorite. He was 50-1 earlier before the season even started. What about the ascendance, that pattern of Jalen Hurts, and how do you see it all right now?
Yeah, he seems to be getting better and better within every week. He doesn't have the gross passing numbers of a typical MVP, but he still has been highly efficient through the air while also being one of the best rushers in the league, regardless of his position. And a touchdown is a touchdown, whether you throw it or run it. And I think these odds makers see that. He's dangerous. You might say Mahomes is dangerous as well, but he kind of evens the score a little bit with his legs. Hurts has consistently thrived while being the most important piece of the best team in the NFL. That could be the definition of the MVP. So and you got to look at the efficiency as well. Look at the interceptions. He's only thrown 3 interceptions. No matter how many touchdowns you throw, an interception is still a turnover, and a battle of turnovers usually kind of makes you win or lose the game. And when you have 11 interceptions to 3, you're hurting your team, and I think that gives a knock on Mahomes as well. And I think Jalen Hurts has been just quite the opposite. Yeah, he hasn't done really anything to hurt his team. He hasn't beaten himself. He's been a very smart quarterback, and he's been putting up numbers of an MVP caliber. So usually you don't have one or the other. You have crazy numbers and maybe low efficiency, but he has high efficiency and he has high numbers. So I think it's hard to not put him as a favorite right now.
I love the touch he puts on his passes, especially into tight places. And that is something that nobody really saw him doing or thought he was going to do to this level this year. A.J. Brown has certainly helped him in that regard.
I've been one of his biggest critics. I mean, and I've been saying over and over again, I hope he proves me wrong, because I like him. I like his leadership. I can see the potential. But he's done a complete 180. He's worked on parts of the game, on his game, that he needed to. Like you said, his deep ball he throws it totally different now. I haven't really seen him make that many bad deep balls this season, which is insane coming from where he came from. And his ability to read the defense and go through his progressions, he just looks like a totally different quarterback. And that gives credit to his work ethic and his work as a leader. So I think he has everything going for him right now. He's on a talented team, and he has everything in his path to get that MVP.
And Bill, when you look at him and you look at the Eagles, it's all added up to some very special nuggets on what this team is accomplishing.
Yeah, it was. I couldn't decide on what to put in there for Gelman's goal this week because there's so much exciting stuff happening with this team. Since we're talking about Jalen Hurts, he's the second youngest quarterback to start the season 12-1 or better since 1970 merger. He's a little over 24 years of age. The other guy, you might have heard of him, Dan Marino, Miami Dolphins, 1984. He was 23 years, 72 days. Wow. So he was the last quarterback to do that. And Jalen Hurts has also helped with all his rushing touchdowns, also helped set a new Eagles single season rushing touchdown of they have 27 for the season so far. It's a no-brainer. They're going to easily get over 30. Here's the little tidbit though. The 26 touchdowns, we have to go all the way back to the 1945 season.
Wow.
It's been that long before any of us were even step foot on this earth.
Holy mackerel. What I mean, these are historic numbers that we're seeing them break through. And it really is quite a testament. I think, and you've hit on it, just the balance. I mean, okay, so you start to take away the run, they get you through the air, you try to cover through the air, they slash you through. And when they get down around that 10-yard line, 8-yard line, if he needs to do it with his legs, he'll do it. Like we saw in the Indianapolis game when he had to take matters into his own hands to save that one.
Yeah, he's the type of quarterback who'll just put the whole team on his back and carry them to victory in a time of need. There were a couple of ugly games this season, but other than Washington, this team stepped up when they needed to close out the games.
Well, they had their little wake-up call, that 2-game stretch with Washington and Indianapolis. And guess what? As we start week 15, the Eagles have more points than anyone in the NFL, 386, even a couple more than Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. And boy, wouldn't that be a great Super Bowl, talking about Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, bring a calculator. Well, that's the type of stuff we can speculate between now, the end of the season, and through the playoffs. And we'll come back and we'll have more in the next quarter of Why Eagles Why. Fourth quarter of Why Eagles Why. Playoffs? Yeah, playoffs. The Eagles are the first team guaranteed the postseason, even though we've seen it all along. And Bill, I guess there's something nice about being number one and being first.
Yeah, so this is a big deal. You still got some stuff to accomplish here. It's right now, if the playoffs started, yes, the Eagles be the number one seed, but they haven't sealed up the NFC East yet. They haven't sealed the number one overall seed in the conference, which would bring the NFC playoffs through Lincoln Financial Field. Again, it's, looking at the current playoffs picture, right now the Eagles are the number one seed. They get that first round bye. Spots 5 through 7 are Dallas, Washington, and the Giants. And that'll likely change. I thought Seattle was going to enter the picture, but they threw up a dud last week against the Carolina Panthers. So it's going to be interesting to see who, if Dallas can even make it out of the first round of the playoffs. Because if they get that number 5 seed right now, who would they play?
Would they have to play someone? Well, they'll have to go on the. They might have to play a San Francisco, perhaps.
San Francisco. They might have to go up against Tom Brady.
The Bucs are probably 49ers they would have to play.
Yeah, but the Bucs are not scaring anybody when we looked at how the 49ers dismantled them.
Yeah, but the week before, Brady pulled out a win in the final minute of a game.
Over New Orleans.
They were down big.
Don't give him the ball late. That's a recipe for disaster. And I would not be surprised if the Detroit Lions make the playoffs, because they're 6-7 now. They've got 6 straight covers. We talked last week about them being a 5-win team and being favored against the Vikings, which they then covered. And they play the Jets this week, so I'm seeing a lot of interest in that game as the Lions continue to bear in. And with the Giants and Commanders facing each other, one of those teams will have 6 losses. So the Vikings will be right there. But Pete, one team that really intrigues me as a threat, and they have been, is the 49ers ever since they got Christian McCaffrey. There's something about that team and being able to grind you down that I think that they are now really the biggest threat in the NFC to the Eagles, regardless of the earlier losses they had. I think they're the team coming on.
Yeah, I probably would agree with that. Mathematically, I don't think they can get the first seed, but
no,
if the Eagles meet with them in the playoffs, it's a totally different 49ers team than we saw in the beginning of the season. Scrappy team. They can run the ball well. Efficient offense, and they have a great defense. So a team that can run the ball well and a good defense could beat any team, really. It just all depends on it all depends on the coach's game plan. I think that's going to come down to coaching, the adjustments made halftime. So that would probably be the team I would least want to see in the playoffs. I would hope somebody would knock them out, but I'm not really worried about anybody taking the 1 seed. I know mathematically the Cowboys are mathematically still in it to take the 1 seed. I've been saying for a couple weeks now, I'm not really worried about the Cowboys. I don't really see anything special about that team. They're going to make the playoffs. They're going to have a nice record, but they don't scare me. I mean, there's nobody really. They don't even have a. I mean, they just got T.Y. Hilton. Say what you want about him, if he can stay on the field, and Dak has not been the Dak that we remembered before his injury. So
they were 1 play away from being beaten by the 1-win Houston Texans last week, and should have lost in that game. Mm-hmm. It would have been the biggest meltdown because they were favored by 17 points. And they had that game. Houston was 1 yard away from punching in the put-away touchdown. So I think Dallas has hit a bit of a wall here. Now, Bill, when you look at this and the intrigue about who are some of the teams coming up that are very interesting to watch, other than the Eagles, but who do you think about in the NFC and in the AFC?
The NFC, I agree with you guys. I think San Francisco's in that mix. The question, right? I believe Deebo Samuel's out with an injury. I don't think he's playing this week, so it'll be interesting to see how that affects the San Francisco offense, because you're talking about Mr. Irrelevant as a starting quarterback, and you don't have your top wide receiver. So those are 2 big holes. Minnesota, as long as they have Justin Jefferson in the lineup, they've just gotten ice cold lately. Detroit Lions are a team to watch out for, as you mentioned, because they just have gotten hot at the right time. And then I'm most intrigued by, could we see a potential Super Bowl match between the Philadelphia Eagles and Andy Reid's Kansas City Chiefs?
How sweet that would be.
What can you see the headlines now? And then even better, we've been talking about the MVP race, Jalen Hurts versus Patrick Mahomes for the Vince Lombardi Trophy.
You can't beat it. And you look at the quarterbacks, same type of style when necessary, that they can both beat you on the scramble, and they say you want to contain them both. I think that Hurts is emerging, and teams are starting to. I think they're going to figure out a way to contain Patrick Mahomes. I mean, Tampa Bay did it a couple of years ago, where they just get, like Pete, like you were saying, keep a guy in the pocket and not let him beat you with his legs like that, and make him throw the ball deep to those guys. And I think that they're not the same since they lost Tyreek Hill. So I think it's fascinating that first of all, we can talk about the rest of the NFC like they're not even here right now because the Eagles are that much above them.
Yeah, I think the Eagles have shown they had a little hiccups here and there throughout the season, but every team is going to have hiccups throughout the season. I think they've always with the Washington game, they beat us because they played keep away from Hurts. I mean, that's why they beat us. And I think that was, in my opinion, that was more of a coaching issue on the defensive side. So yeah, I don't see any NFC team. I mean, anything can happen in the playoffs. It's not like a 7-game series or something like that. I mean, we've seen crazier things happen. But yeah, that would be pretty nice. Mahomes versus Hurts in the Super Bowl. Granted, I think it's going to be a little rougher of a ride for Chiefs to get there than the Eagles. Like you said, the Chiefs, Mahomes doesn't have much talent around him, and that gives credit to him as well. I mean, he's done what he's done without that talent. But how long is he going to be able to do that? And can he do that in the playoffs against good teams?
Yeah. To your point, they would have to go through the Bengals and the Bills, two very talented teams there. But nonetheless, what a great way to start the home stretch of the season as the Eagles play the Bears, then the Cowboys game. And should games matter at the end for that number 1 seed? Well, their last game is against the Giants, and we just saw what happened there. So things could not be looking better for the Eagles. We'll be coming back with our overtime segment. Overtime for Why Eagles Why. Loaded schedule. Saturday, 3 games, highlighted by Miami at Buffalo, the rematch. And that's a primetime game. Pete, what are your final thoughts on overtime?
I'm going to go with a Pete's pick. Was messing around with a few games, but the Miami Bills game, I feel like would be the most fun one to pick because that's the one most people are going to be watching. I like the Bills here. I know they're giving 7 points, but I just think they're going to beat the Dolphins pretty not easily, but I think they're going to beat them by 7 points. If you want to tease it down to maybe 6.5 or 5.5, you might do that. But what I really like here is the over of 42 on this game. It's a 42 total, so I would take the over of 42. That's probably my Pete's pick for the week is the Miami Dolphins Bills over 42.
All right, Bill, your final thoughts.
Well, I think definitely that Miami Buffalo game is going to be the highlight of the Week 15 card here. I don't think there's any other game that's going to spark a ton of interest in terms of competitiveness. I like the Dolphins side in that game with the points because I just don't think that at the beginning of the season I would have said absolutely the Bills, but the Bills really haven't been blowing me away lately. But my bigger issue is, we get into the flex scheduling portion of the season, and you have the Giants Washington game that was moved into Sunday night. So that game, yes, you have 2 teams fighting for wild card spots, NFC East division rivalry, and people will definitely watch it, but it's not like they played each other 2 weeks ago and ended up in I believe a 20-20 tie. And then Monday night, the Packers-Rams game. That was at the beginning of the season, one a lot of us probably would have circled on the calendar as a must-see game. Now you have 2 teams that are probably not even going to make the playoffs, and it's sad because on one side you got the Super Bowl champion Rams, the other side you have Aaron Rodgers at the tail end of his career. Who would have thought that both these teams would come into this game with limited opportunities to make the playoffs and losing records?
2 words on that Monday night game: Christian Watson. We've been talking about him. 8 touchdowns in the last 4 games for Green Bay. And maybe Aaron Rodgers is new Devontae Adams. That's even if we see Rodgers playing the whole game. They can go with the youth movement anytime they want. But hey, listen, everybody, thanks for joining us. It's been a great time with Pete and Bill. Please remember to hit like and subscribe to be notified about future videos. For Pete Amato and for Bill Gelman, this is Dave Bontempo saying so long, and we'll see you next week on Why Eagles Why.